Good morning. Happy Friday to everybody. It's the end of an amazing week. Hope that you had a fantastic week and you have some great things planned for the weekend for you, your family, your loved ones. And, we're getting to the end of the year. It's a time where we start thinking about the past year and being grateful for what the year has been. It's been a beautiful year. And we look forward to another beautiful year and we start planning ahead for 2026, right? So, in my job as an accountant, as a finance professional, um, I see a lot of behaviors that come from high control environments. And I just thought today to follow on from yesterday's video, we can then look at how the high control environments that we grew up in affect our financial decisions today. Because as a finance professional, it's difficult sometimes to help people understand that the their financial behavior is really not about money. It's about your upbringing. It's about your psychology, and you'll hear that often. But it's never explained, in a simple way that an everyday person can understand. And that's my hope to do today. And when I say the hidden cost, I'm not talking about money, right? I'm talking about the trust that you never built within yourself, the confidence that you never developed, right? Your inability to make decisions because you're seeking permission, you're seeking certainty, right? And all of these things. So I've got some notes that I'm going to be referring to, and just to help me keep my thoughts in line. But today we're going to explore that concept and how that has unfolded. And I'm going to start with a story about my life, right? Or that happened in my life. And the story starts in 1969. In 1969, there was a young man who was a Jehovah's Witness, and he had a Jehovah's Witness father. And he was doing well in school, good grades, had great potential. And the young man, wanted to pursue going to A levels. So they'd done O levels and they wanted to go to A levels. And their father said no. I think they were 15 years old around this time. And the Jehovah's Witness father said, no, you cannot pursue higher education, which was A levels, which is matriculation, um, or grade 12 or form 6. And, so basically, no, there's no need for you to finish high school. And from my understanding, around the same time, 1969, the word was Armageddon was coming in 1975. So a lot of decisions were made, and this young man, who would later go on to become my father, made decisions, or decisions were made for him that impacted not only his life, but his children's life. And his children grew up seeing him sort of struggle with those two voices, the inner voice and the outer voice. And this young man went on to start working right after school. And at the time, you could get jobs and you could, buy property. The economy was favorable. So he went ahead and started working really hard. By the time he was 28, when he got married, he already had 4 properties that he had purchased, 2 residential houses and other properties as well. So, by all accounts, he was doing well for himself. At 28, 4 properties, getting married, life is on the up. Um, but what followed after that was a series of missed opportunities, a lack of confidence, and self contradiction and self sabotage that led to a series of unfortunate events where all of that potential was squandered. And I talk about my father's journey because that's where I started getting a lot of lessons to look at my own life, right? When I looked at patterns that I was repeating in my life that my father struggled with, as a kid, it was easy to see that my father is struggling with this than it was to see myself. And, you know, so one of the big things that um, will cost us in our finances, in our financial lives, in our career, coming from high control environments is the fear of making a decision, right? Fear of making the wrong decision. And, you know, paralysis around making the wrong decision. You overanalyze a decision to death, trying to get it right. And sometimes what you're going to do there is you're going to miss the opportunity because you overanalyze it. Or you're going to take a simple opportunity and overcomplicate it because you're just so afraid of getting it wrong, right? And yesterday we talked about how we're trained to think that way in these environments. You know, I work with a lot of small businesses, media businesses, particularly the smaller businesses that are starting out. I see this. You know, if you're doing accounting work with them, sometimes they're like seeking permission from you. Some of my clients, I can see they're seeking permission from me to become a responsible business person. Sometimes they want me to be the parent, right, and make the decisions for them. Sometimes when you discuss strategy and, they're seeking certainty before they can take the next step. And the reason I correlate this to outside of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is the environment I grew up in, is I see people who come from these high control environments, whether it's at home or it's a church or other places. The high control environment can be an overbearing parent, can be a tyrannical grandparent who runs the family a certain way, right? It can be an abusive father, right? It can be a number of things. So these high control environments that a lot of people, a lot of human beings grow up in and have to overcome in their adulthood um, are things that we have in common with a lot of people, not just Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or people who are from cults or high control uh, faiths. Um, so I talked about belief that certainty must come from someone else. I experience this with my own clients sometimes, where if we're discussing a tax issue and they're worried that the government is going to do something, and we look at the laws and the statutes that apply to their specific business, and decisions that they can make within the laws, right? And still they're just unsure. They first have to go check with this person, they have to come back again, and they can't make a decision, and they almost want you to make the decision for them, and you cannot make that decision for them, right? And coming from high control environments, if you find yourself in that space of outsourcing your decision making, expecting somebody else to give you that certainty, or finding yourself seeking permission, right, to make decisions, that's going to be something that you need to be very careful of, because you're going to miss opportunities, you're going to convolute opportunities, simple opportunities into this difficult thing. These are decisions and ways of behaviors that are going to affect your financial outcomes, right? If I look at my father, for example, when he had decisions to make around whether to pursue a career further and get a promotion, or to double down on becoming an elder, and he would always be oscillating between those two, and what that led to was an inconsistent career, um, and the effects of that, right, on a family of four boys and a wife. So he was doing the best he could, but there was this inner conflict, and I think it's very important that we work on that inner mindset. Um, I think another aspect that is very important to look at and talk about is the belief that you are not deserving, that you shouldn't want more for yourself, right? That's something that a lot of religions struggle with in the way they preach. The people struggle with, because in the Bible it says the root of all, the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And so, am I loving money by trying to grow my career and grow my finances? And there's this evil element attached to it. Money is from the devil, right? And what helped me in my journey to overcome that scarcity mindset, that limiting belief around I shouldn't want more, is I started watching and reading the Jewish rabbis, Rabbi Daniel Lapin and others, and how they talk about money. And money is an instrument from God. And it's the instrument that he uses to get his children to help his children. So for me, doing my job to help small businesses in my pursuit of making money, I'm helping other businesses, right? And that's how God is helping his children, my clients, right? And the suppliers that I pay will help me with marketing, will help me with, a whole host of things, who do the books for me, etc. And I pay them. They are helping a child of God. So money is an instrument that can be used for good, right? And we have to find ways to break those limiting beliefs, because if we don't, we will self-sabotage when the opportunities come knocking, right? So we talked about analysis paralysis, not fear of making a decision, seeking certainty, right? Because you've lost trust in yourself and you've lost confidence. Seeking permission because you're told you have to do things the right way. These are little behaviors and a psychological state that will affect your finances, right? Will affect your business, affect what you do. Whether you're making a lot of money or you have little means, you are going to be affected, right? This is not about the actual money itself. This is about the quality of your life and how you're using money to better yourself and to better your life. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next layer. So what are some ways when people are trying to sort of get better, improve their lives? What are the things that people do that don't actually address the real problem, right? And you'll see this often. I'm sure you've heard this in your life as well, where people will try budgeting apps, they'll try different apps, they'll try, Excel, they'll try some fancy app, Acorn, and this and that, right? But they still feel blocked. I prepare budgets, I prepare cash flow statements, I prepare projections for people. And a lot of times you find people, it's always an emotional need. If you're preparing a cash flow projection or budget for business, sometimes what people are seeking is just, are we good? Are we okay? And the moment they get that feeling, they stop making the decisions that are required in the business. They start behaving as if, oh, we've got money, everything's good, and they start making the wrong decisions, right? I hope you're following me. A lot of times, as a finance professionals, the moment you deliver a budget, a, a financial statement that says the business isn't good, is in a good space, right? You have cash flow and we project that your cash flow is going to last you for 6 months, right? Emotionally, what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is they now feel good. That feeling of uncertainty has been squashed. And now they're operating with this freedom and confidence, and it boils over into a little bit of carelessness. And they start, making spend decisions. Oh, let's buy this, let's invest in that, let's do this, we've got the money, right? And then within 2 months, 3 months, they're now worrying about money again. Why? Because they used up the money when they were feeling confident. And now that feeling of uncertainty comes back in and the cycle continues, right? So you can use these fancy apps, you can use financial professionals like myself, but if you don't address the real psychological things, you will go through the cycle, right? And I see this with small businesses and larger businesses as well, right? The psychology is the same. Um, and that's an important thing to note when you are trying to better yourself. Another thing is learning a lot of financial tips, how to do business, how to do this. You watch a lot of videos from other people, but you actually never implement them. You never actually get out of the blocks and start doing, right? It's because of that hesitancy. You don't have that confidence to actually go do it. And, imagine as a Jehovah's Witness, you kind of watch your life pass you by. You can't do birthdays. You can't cheers. You can't go to parties. You can't do Christmas. You can't, there's so many things. There's a school play. You can't do that play because, they're doing this. You want to be part of this team. Oh, no, you can't be part of the team because that's too much competition. So you kind of watch your life pass you by, right? And you experience life through sort of watching other people. I wouldn't call it voyeurism unless my English is running out, but let's call it voyeurism, right? Where you are basically living vicariously through others, right? You're always on the outside. At a certain point, you need to now step into your life and be the character in your life, doing the things, making the decisions, taking the action, right? And facing the consequences, good or bad. And that's something that you're going to have to build that confidence. As we discussed yesterday, you're going to have to go on a journey of self-discovery to figure out your own inner voice, your intuition, your preferences, your pet peeves, right? These small things, and start taking action, right? Because for your finances to improve, to get better, you're going to have to take action. And let me end it on this. Clarity, financial clarity. Financial clarity is about emotional clarity. And when we have these psychological and emotional fog around that our finances, whether we should pursue more money, right? You may have left Jehovah's Witnesses, but you may still carry that guilt, that shame, that fear, that hesitancy around money, or that limiting belief, or that scarcity mindset. You could still carry that. And financial clarity is really more about your emotional clarity, right? When you're rebuilding your businesses, or working and saving and investing, what are you seeking? I can boil it down to this. There's financial independence, there's financial freedom, and there's financial stability. You can achieve financial stability with a great career, a good job, and you have financial stability, and you're fine. And if that's what you're seeking, you need to be clear about that. Financial independence is about having more, not just one job, multiple jobs. So if you're running a business, it's about having more than one client, having multiple clients. It's also about having your investments coming from multiple income streams, right? So you're not reliant on any one thing. So you have independence. Financial freedom is about being able to do anything you want anytime, right? Even if it means you have to save up for 3 months, you have to save up for 6 months, but pretty much anything you want to do, you can do, right? And for a lot of people, the idea of financial freedom is the seductive idea. But emotionally, you're just seeking financial stability because you grew up in an environment where there wasn't financial stability. What you're truly seeking is financial independence because you hate the idea of relying on somebody and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you just want to have financial independence, right? And it's very important to find that clarity for yourself and to make sure that you have a great idea of where you want to go, right? Okay, great. So what's the path forward? We start with small, low risk decisions, right? So find the small, low risk decisions. For me, in my journey, where did I start? I started with a budget. When I started putting a budget in place for me and my wife, we were together for 12 years or so before we had children. So we had a lot of time to, learn from each other and all of that. And the first point of call point for me was a budget, an Excel spreadsheet where we're managing our finances. We had to because I left a high-paying job. I went to start a business. We weren't making money, and we were tanking. So now we had to manage the little money that we had. And so I started putting a budget in place. In that budget, I started seeing small micro decisions that affected our finances. If we have a budget to say we're going to spend 5,000 on groceries this month, right? But when you get into the shop and you start buying, a lot of nice to haves before you buy things that you need. I know this sounds basics, but this is very important. This is where you build your confidence, right? Um, and I started noticing how those micro decisions when you're standing in the aisle and, oh, I like that. Oh, I want that, right? When you're shopping with your wife, that's going to happen. But those micro decisions affected our ability to stay within the 5,000 Rand budget we had for food, right? And once we went out of that budget, it meant our entertainment budget, we had to spend that money that we'd put aside for us to, go out, have dinners, that sort of thing. And if you're spending that, it knocks on, you're saving less because you think, oh, we need more money, right? But just staying within budget when it comes to specific areas in your life. So small decisions like that, that's a great place to start. You're learning about your own behaviors. You can start correlating when you made that decision that impacted your cash flow. When you made the decision to take money from your savings, to borrow from your savings, to fund this thing, what was it? What drove you to make that decision? Start learning about yourself with these small micro decisions. Great. Rebuild self-trust, right? Trust yourself with small amounts of money to invest and start small, right? You can put a automated investment into unit trusts or something like that, exchange traded funds, and just put that aside. It can be $100 a month, $200 a month, right? Start small, and just for a year, put that aside and watch that grow, right? You have to rebuild that trust. You have to rebuild that trust in multiple ways with your relationships, right? At work, with family, with friends, or your clients, or whatever it is. So you work on building trust, self-trust, building confidence, and clarity. You've got to now figure out what are your triggers, what is driving your behavior, and what do you need to do to get that clarity for yourself. And that'll be a great way for you to kickstart that journey and start getting better at handling your finances and having clarity and moving forward with confidence. All right, great. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Tell me if you have experience with the past, right, influencing your future, and you've seen that, you've experienced that. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to, connect with people who've been on that journey. It's a tough journey. Some of these things are easier said than done, or it's easier said looking back, right? So I completely understand that. So it'll be great to just hear what your guys' stories are for those who are able to share. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.